Constantine did not split the Roman Empire in two. He moved the center of power, redesigned the administration, and laid the foundations of an eastern pole capable of surviving the fall of Rome. How could a single man prepare, almost unintentionally, the birth of the Byzantine Empire and the end of the Western Empire? At the turn of the 3rd and 4th centuries, the Roman Empire trembles. The borders rumble, cities quake, the gods are silent. The Roman world is no longer that secure block that dominates the sea and the lands. It is a colossus shaken by winds, fissured by wars, eroded by revolts. And yet, at the heart of this turmoil, an implacable hand reaches out to reshape the world order. That hand, for now, bears the name of Diocletian. We are at the end of the 3rd century. Rome has long ceased to be the sole center of power. The emperor no longer resides there as in the Golden Age. The crisis of the previous decades shattered the illusion of a singular, peaceful authority recognized by all. Soldiers proclaim emperors at the borders. Thrones are won in blood, on the banks of the Rhine, the Danube, at the edges of Mesopotamia. The immense empire seems too vast for a single head. Diocletian looks at this enormity and decides to tame it by dividing it. In 293, he cuts. He no longer wants a solitary power swept away by military storms. He fashions a new architecture, the Tetrarchy. 2 Augusti, 2 Caesars. 4 men for 1 empire. 2 suns, 2 secondary stars, linked in a fragile, tense, but orderly system. Diocletian himself takes the east. He distances himself from Rome, settles in Nicomedia, facing the roads of Asia, turned toward Persia, toward the plains where Sassanid armies rise. For the west, he chooses Maximian, who resides in Milan, at the heart of northern Italy, near the Alps, between Rome and the Rhine borders. Under them, 2 Caesars. Galerius, a tough soldier, watches over the east alongside Diocletian. Constantius Chlorus, diplomat and general, holds the west alongside Maximian. Together, they divide the empire without breaking it. They do not share it as a fragmented inheritance, but as a heavy cuirass held by several arms. Each commands armies, administers justice, collects taxes. All mint coins in the name of imperial concord. Above them hovers a fiction. 1 empire, but several thrones. This tetrarchy rests on another quiet and relentless revolution. Diocletian redraws the administrative map. He fragments the old provinces, these poorly supervised giants, into smaller, more controllable units. Instead of a vast, powerful governor, several administrators more dependent on the center. He traces the network of prefectures and dioceses. In the west, the prefecture of Italy, the prefecture of Gaul, rise. In Illyricum, at the crossroads between the 2 worlds, another prefecture. In the east, the great prefecture of Orientis, which looks toward Antioch, Alexandria, Nicomedia. Administrative capitals multiply like so many beacons. Milan, Trier in the north, Sirmium on the Danube, Nicomedia on the Propontis, Antioch at the gates of Syria, Alexandria on the shores of Egypt. Gradually, functions separate. Civil governors levy taxes, organize cities, enforce laws. Military leaders command troops, guard borders, crush revolts. Where once a single man concentrated both powers, Diocletian erects a barrier. The sword and the register must no longer be in the same hands. The shadow of corruption and usurpations weighs on every decision. The Praetorian prefect, once chief of the imperial guard in Rome, becomes the great regional administrator. He no longer merely guards the emperor. He now guards entire territories, supervises provinces, manages finances, embodies the authority of the center in the peripheries. But even as the center reorganizes, even as palaces settle in Milan, Nicomedia, Trier, the borders continue to rumble. The empire lives on the edge of the sword. To the north, on the Rhine and Danube, Germanic peoples incessantly test the solidity of camps and fortifications. Alamanni, Franks, Goths stir, strike in quick raids, probe the weaknesses of the limes. They burn villages, pillage warehouses, seek the breach. The river is no longer merely a geographical barrier. It becomes a line of fire. The West lives turned toward these dark, cold waters. Armies stationed on the Rhine and Danube banks are no longer merely garrisons. They are worlds apart, rooted in place, accustomed to perpetual war. The Limitanae, border soldiers, guard bastions, monitor fords, live in contact with the barbarians, sometimes confront them, sometimes negotiate. Inside, more mobile, the comitatenses maneuver armies, gather at the imperial signal, strike quickly, move from city to city, from province to province, to seal the breaches. In the east, another threat burns on the horizon, the Sassanids. Under King Narsa, between 293 and 302, the Persian kingdom once again stands against Rome. The Mesopotamian border becomes the theater of a titanic struggle. Fortresses, deserts, rivers, everything becomes a stake. Diocletian and his co-emperors can never take their eyes off this fragile line where the empire opens towards Asia. There, the great cities of the east, Antioch, Edessa, Nisibis, feel the pulse of danger. The victories and setbacks of the east determine the image of the empire as much as the triumphs in the west. In this world at arms, soldiers are no longer just instruments. They become arbiters. The legions, cohorts, and cavalrymen now know that their acclamation can make an emperor. Before Diocletian, men like Probus, Carus, Carinus, Numerian have risen to power through the favor of the troops. On a battlefield, by a river, amidst the tents, the army's cries can elevate a general, lift him onto a shield, and by this gesture, defy the Senate, Rome, legality. This habit does not disappear. It still lurks, ready to shatter the order patiently built. Diocletian understands the danger. He seeks to lock the succession. The tetrarchy is not just a division of labor, it is a machine for transmitting power. Each Augustus has a Caesar. Each Caesar, in principle, must succeed the Augustus. The choice should no longer come from the barracks, but from the palaces. Yet, under the smooth surface of titles, ambitions are already boiling. On May 1st, 305, in an almost unprecedented gesture, Diocletian abdicates. Voluntarily. He steps down from the throne, retires to Split in Dalmatia, far from the burning capitals, in a palace turned toward the sea. Maximian, his colleague from the west, is compelled to imitate him. Thus opens a new chapter. Galerius becomes Augustus for the east. Constantius Chlorus becomes Augustus for the west. At their sides, two new Caesars emerge, Severus in the west, Maximinus Daia in the east. The edifice seems to hold. On paper, the machine continues, but in the shadows, a name waits for its hour. Constantine. Born in Nisus, in Moesia, around 272 or 273, Constantine opens his eyes in an empire already in crisis. His father, Constantius Chlorus, is a man of power. His mother, Helena, is of modest origin according to some voices, but her figure soon becomes wrapped in legend. The child grows up in the movement of the armies. He sees the camps, the standards, the parades. Very early, he feels the weight of the cuirasses, the rumor of campaigns. Under Diocletian and Galerius, he resides in Nicomedia, the blazing heart of the tetrarchal East. There he learns the language of the palaces, the codes of the army, the court strategies. In Nicomedia, Constantine does not just watch, he acts. He serves in the entourage of Galerius, accompanies the expeditions against the Sassanids, shares the dust of marches, the tension of sieges, the fear of ambushes. He observes the generals, gauges the art of handling the troops, of speaking to soldiers, of winning them by glory and loot. Each campaign hardens him. Each victory, each defeat, engraves more deeply in him the conviction that only the sword, supported by a vision, can hold the empire upright. Then, in 305-306, destiny tears him from the east. Galerius, worried about his influence, tries to hold him back. But Constantine joins his father Constantius, now Augustus of the West. He heads towards the mists of Britain, towards the shores of Gaul. He leaves the eastern palaces to enter another world, that of western bases, stone and wood fortresses, disciplined garrisons watching over the Franks and the Alamanni. In July 306, at Eburacum, modern-day York, time breaks. Constantius Chlorus dies. Around his bed, the officers, tribunes, soldiers gather. Power cannot remain empty. In the air already floats the scent of possible mutiny. Then the troops make their decision. They acclaim Constantine. They greet him not as a mere designated successor, but as Augustus. They elevate the son to the place of the father. In the coolness of the north, at the edge of the lines, a new emperor is born by the voice of soldiers. Galerius, in the east, does not let the affront pass. He cannot accept that an Augustus rises without his consent. He makes a compromise. He recognizes Constantine, but only as Caesar. He intends to keep control of the hierarchy, maintain the fiction of an order imposed from the east. Yet in the camps of Britain and Gaul, Constantine knows he holds more than this diminished title. He holds the loyalty of his troops, the respect of the officers, the key to provinces rich in men and wheat. At that precise moment, far from him, in Rome, another flame is kindled. In October 306, Maxentius, son of Maximian, revolts. He refuses the marginalization of his lineage, rejects the combinations of the Tetrarchy. He has himself proclaimed emperor by the Praetorian Guard, those soldiers who, in Rome, still remember their former power. The Roman Senate, seeking protection, supports him. A new authority establishes itself over Italy and Africa. The eternal city rises against the tetrarchic edifice. Thus, a clear fracture is born. On one side, Constantine, anchored in Gaul and Britain, soon to be master of Hispania, turned towards Trier, Augusta Treverorum, which becomes his main residence. On the other, Maxentius, entrenched in Rome, controlling Italy and Africa, relying on the old elites, the African grain warehouses, the Praetorian Guard. Among them, other names still slip in. Severus, then Licinius in the west, Galerius and Maximinus Daia in the east. Titles multiply. There are several Augusti, Caesars too. The empire segments into zones of command, spheres of influence, de facto autonomous units. The fiction of unity persists, but the reality crumbles. In Trier, Constantine strengthens his power. He takes the time to consolidate his bases. He mints coins in his image. His face circulates from market to market, from workshop to workshop. His coins proclaim his legitimacy, recall his victory, insinuate his image into the memory of the peoples. He reorganizes the local defenses, secures the borders against the Germans, strengthens the garrisons, grants favors to loyal cities. He presents himself as the protector of Gaul, Britain, and Hispania. Trier becomes a vibrant center, a Rome of the north, with its palaces, its baths, its amphitheater where imperial majesty is tested. In this troubled context, another line of fracture traverses the empire: faith. Christianity is no longer a distant rumor. Entire communities gather in houses, in suburbs, in commercial districts. In Rome, Carthage, Alexandria, Antioch, Nicomedia, bishops, presbyters, deacons organize networks, write letters, hold synods. Christians refuse certain public rites, contest through their sole fidelity to a single god the ancient civic cults. Diocletian, in the last years of his reign, launches the Great Persecution. From 303 to 311, especially in the East, edicts rain down. Churches are destroyed, books seized, prayer places walled up. Believers are imprisoned, tortured, executed. The East burns more harshly, as the imperial authority is closer, more present, more intrusive. Governors enforce orders with severity. Eastern cities see the courts fill with confessores, those who confess their faith, and martyrs, those who ended in blood. In the West, the persecution is more uneven. Some regions apply the edicts, others soften them, others almost suspend them. Under Constantius Chlorus, then under Constantine, the Christians breathe more freely. Sources do not agree on all the details, but one thing emerges. Constantine, even before the major turning points of 313, shows less hostility to these communities than Galerius or Maximinus Daia do. He does not crush them. He lets them live, sometimes protects them, sometimes uses them as a relay of order and stability. Thus, on the eve of his rise to supreme power, Constantine stands at the crossroads of several worlds. He is a son of the West, born in the Balkans, trained on the frontiers, nurtured in Trier, master of Gaul and Britain. But he knows the East, its palaces, its Greek cities, its administrative traditions. He has seen Nicomedia, recognized the forces of the Levant, perceived the depth of these provinces turned towards the Aegean Sea and the eastern Mediterranean. Already, before he reunites the entire empire, a distinction is anchored in the facts. The West looks towards Rome, Milan, Trier, Carthage. The East is structured around Nicomedia, Antioch, Alexandria. Prefectures, armies, fiscal circuits follow these lines. Late texts speak of pars occidentis and pars orientis. They do not yet designate two empires separated by law, but two vast entities, two administrative bodies, two fields of action. Laws circulate, cross internal borders, but realities diverge. Religious differences accentuate this movement. In the East, the wounds of recent persecutions are raw. Theological debates, tensions between communities, rivalries between episcopal sees are already rising. In the West, the churches, less scarred, evolve in a more tolerant, more pragmatic environment, under emperors primarily concerned with the Germanic borders and the consolidation of military power. The Christian faith becomes an invisible thread running through the empire from west to east. But this thread does not have the same color, the same tension, the same history everywhere. Under the Tetrarchy, the empire thus changes face. It is no longer centered on Rome, but on a network of capitals. It is no longer focused on a single emperor, but on an unstable college of sovereigns. Borders are no longer merely boundaries, They become makers of men, factories of generals, sowers of usurpers. Christianity, meanwhile, slips into the gaps, conquers the palaces as well as the poor neighborhoods, crosses the seas on merchants' ships, and infiltrates soldiers' conversations. In this tense landscape, a question floats, heavy, threatening. How long will this construction hold? How long will the Augusti and the Caesars accept the place the system assigns to them? How long will the armies remain silent, without imposing their will? Diocletian, retired in his Adriatic palace, no longer dominates anything. Galerius, Maximinus Daia, Licinius, Constantine, Maxentius, and the others advance their pawns. Fracture lines deepen between Rome and Milan, between Trier and Nicomedia, between the West and the East. The empire still holds, but it trembles. And in this trembling, a name slowly imposes itself, carried by victories, by political skill, by a new alliance between the sword and faith. Constantine. The man who knows both shores of the Roman world, the man whom the legions acclaim, the man whom the Christians observe. Soon, he will no longer be content to rule over Gaul and Britain. Soon, it will not suffice to control Trier. He will need to conquer Rome, challenge Italy, negotiate with the East, and, by a yet unthinkable gesture, move the very heart of the empire to another shore. For now, however, history remains suspended. The fragile balance of the tetrarchy cracks. Usurpations multiply. The armies murmur. The cities wait. The West and the East distinguish themselves without breaking apart. Anything seems possible. A return to unity, a fragmentation into rival kingdoms, or the birth of a new order, centered on a man and on a city still hidden in the shadows of the Bosphorus.